Welcome to a world with limitless possibilities. A world where pain and suffering are matched only by the sounds of those who endure it. Welcome to your nightmare.
Welcome to your nightmare.
We like to think our routines keep us safe. We get up at the same time, walk the same paths, fix the things that break in our homes because maintenance is what keeps the chaos at bay. We control our space. But what happens when the things we rely on stop working for the world we know and start working for something else? Tonight, we aren't looking into the dark corners of the woods or the deep recesses of an abandoned building. We're staying right in the heart of the home. In the quiet hours of 4 a.m, where the kitchen light hits the tile just right, and a broken appliance begins to churn out something that was never meant to be frozen. Pull your headphones close. Check the lock on your doors. This is a story of what happens when the routine breaks and the ice runs cold with ash. There is a specific kind of quiet that only exists in a house at 4 a.m. It isn't peaceful. It's heavy. It's the sound of a refrigerator compressor cycling on and off. The small creak of floorboards settling, and the dull rhythmic thud of your own pulse in your ears. I know that quite well. I'm up at 4 every single day. Gym by 5, work by 6:30. It's routine. It keeps the edges of things sharp. But 3 weeks ago, the routine broke. It started with the ice maker. I have an old Kenmore refrigerator in the kitchen. For years it did its job, without a complaint. Then the mechanical arm, the little plastic bale arm that pokes and flips the ice cubes out of the mold, began to fail. It would get stuck halfway through its cycle, making this dry plastic click, click, click in the dark. Every night, right around 3:30, that clicking would wake me up. The first few times, I just pulled the freezer drawer open, reached back into the frost and forced the plastic arms down manually. The ice would drop and the machine would reset, and I'd go back to bed. But on the fourth night, I pulled the drawer open and the ice bucket was empty. Totally bare. I reached my hand deep into the back of the freezer compartment to feel the metal mold. It was freezing cold, of course, but it wasn't wet. There was no water running into it. Instead, my fingers brushed against something soft. It felt like velvet or thick, dry moss. I pulled my hand back, clicked on the refrigerator overhead light and looked at my fingers. They were covered in a fine, matte, black powder. It looked like fireplace soot. But when I rubbed it between my fingers and forethumb, it didn't smear. It didn't leave a gray streak on my skin. It just disappeared into my pores, leaving behind a smell. It smelled like an old cellar, like wet coal and dead leaves. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. The smell stayed in my nose. The next morning, I decided to fix it. I'm good with my hands. I do my own maintenance. I pulled the fridge away from the wall, turned off the water valve, and unscrewed the back panel to check the water inlet line. The copper line was perfectly clear, but the plastic tube that feeds directly into the ice maker assembly was choked. I disconnected the tube and blew into it. Nothing happened. It was totally plugged. I took a piece of stiff wire and pushed it into the plastic opening. When I pulled the wire back out, it brought a clump of something with it. It wasn't ice. It wasn't mineral buildup. It was hair. Long, coarse, gray strands of hair, tightly braided together like a piece of twine. It was soaking wet, but it didn't smell like stagnant water. It smelled like that same dry, ancient soot. I threw the hair in the trash, flushed the line with bleach, put everything back together, and went to work. I figured that was the end of it. Some weird contamination in the municipal line. A one-time glitch. I was wrong. That night, I woke up at exactly 4 a.m. The house was freezing. My breath formed a pale gray mist in the air above my pillow. And from the kitchen, the clicking had stopped. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was the sound of heavy boots walking slowly across the kitchen tile. But it wasn't a normal step. It was wet, like someone walking in boots that were entirely filled with water. I grabbed the heavy iron dumbbell I keep beside my bed for shoulder presses. I didn't turn on the hallway lights. I crept down the carpeted hall, my bare feet silent, the iron heavy and cold in my right hand. I rounded the corner into the kitchen. The kitchen was dark, except for the light leaking out of the refrigerator. The freezer drawer was wide open. Standing in front of the drawer was a shape. It was tall, maybe 6'4", and broad-shouldered, but its outline was blurry in the dim blue light of the freezer bulb. It was hunched over. Its arms reached deep into the ice compartment. "Hey!" I shouted, raising the dumbbell. "Get away from there!" The shape didn't jump. It didn't turn around quickly. It slowly straightened its spine, its joints making a wet popping sound like the suction cups being pulled off glass. It turned towards me. The light from the freezer hit its front. It wasn't wearing clothes. Its skin was the exact color of my gray concrete in the garage. Matte, flat, and covered in thousands of tiny microscopic ridges. It didn't have a face. Where its eyes and noses should have been, the skin was perfectly smooth and gray. But its mouth was a wide horizontal gash that ran from ear to ear, and the mouth was packed full. It was full of ice cubes, but they weren't square cubes. They were dark, jagged chunks of frozen gray grease. As I watched, the thing raised its long, gray hand to its mouth. Its fingers were bound together with coarse braided hair. It reached into its jaw, pulled out a sharp chunk of the gray ice, and dropped it into its open palm. Then it spoke. The voice didn't come from its throat. It came from inside the freezer drawer, a wet, echoing rasp that rattled the glasses inside my kitchen cabinets. "You are keeping the things that were meant to be thrown away." I didn't think. I swung. I swung the iron dumbbell with everything I had, aiming straight for the center of its smooth gray head. The heavy iron connected, but there was no thud of bone. There was no crack of a skull. The dumbbell went straight through. The shape didn't shatter. It didn't dissolve into a massive choking cloud of gray soot. The impact threw me off balance, and I tumbled forward, my hands hitting the cold kitchen tile. The light in the freezer instantly snapped off. The kitchen went black. I lay there on the floor, gasping, coughing as the dry, powdery soot filled my lungs. I scrambled backward until my back hit the kitchen cabinets, swinging my dumbbell wildly in the dark. But the room was empty. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I haven't slept much since. The next morning I checked the kitchen. There was no soot on the floor. There was no gray ice. The dumbbell was resting on the counter where I had set it down with shaking hands. When I look out the window now, the world is different. The green of the grass in my yard is gone. The sky isn't blue, even at noon. Everything is flat, cement gray, and my routine has changed. I don't go to the gym at 5 anymore. I can't leave the house. Every time I try to step across the threshold of my front door, my throat fills with dry ash, and my lungs freeze solid until I step back inside. I spend my days in the kitchen now, sitting in a chair, watching the Kenmore. The water line doesn't work at all anymore, but the ice maker hasn't stopped running. Every 20 minutes, the plastic art pokes and flips. Click, click, click. And then the sound drops into the bucket. I don't empty it. I can't touch them. The bucket is overflowing now, spilling out into the kitchen tile. Little, dark, jagged chunks of frozen gray grease. And if I hold my breath and listen closely to the frost gathering on the freezer door, I can hear my own voice whispering from inside the ice. The next time you wake up in the dead of night, don't look at the clock. Don't check the hallway. Just listen. Listen to the hum of the house, the settling of the walls, the slow mechanical cycle of the things keeping your food cold and your air moving. We build these spaces to shut out the wild, dark world, forgetting that the things we bring inside have a life of their own. And if you hear a click in the dark, if you feel a sudden, unexplainable chill creeping across your kitchen floor, leave it alone. Some things are broken for a reason, and some things are meant to stay frozen. I want to thank you all for listening tonight to this episode of Nightmare. And if you haven't done so already, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any story suggestions, please reach out to me at nightmarepod@gmail.com. And yes, if you couldn't tell, I'm not feeling well this week. My voice is giving it away. So, yeah. And until next time, sleep well.